Up next, we have Jennifer Newcomb Marine. She's been writing about making peace between divorced families for 6 years now and still somehow manages to have faith in humanity. She is the mother of 2 supremely talented daughters and is currently at work on her second book. Jennifer is reading The Tiny Bridgemaker.
All I know is, when we have a baby, I don't want her to see it, hold it, or have anything to do with it. She just needs to stay away. Those were the sentiments of Carol, my children's stepmother. Luckily, I wasn't around to hear this because she meant me. But now, here I was, lodged in the green velvet chair of the living room, next to a snazzy new diaper bag full of jammies, with my daughters happily tucked away in the family room watching a movie. And 6-month-old Jacob was leaning back into the crook of my arm, drinking from a bottle, big blue eyes framed by long lashes looking intently into my face. I gently smoothed his fine blonde hair away from his forehead and felt my heart catch. His hands tightly pressed down over mine on the bottle as if to say, "You are not allowed to move." And he swallowed steadily and loudly. It was pretty surreal, and certainly where I never imagined I'd find myself, babysitting the child of my ex-husband David and his second wife Carol. She and I were like wary dogs in the beginning, circling each other, nervous, suspicious. We had no good reason to think well of the other. But over time, and perhaps out of selfish necessity, we began taking peacemaking baby steps just to ease some of the nail-biting stress of dealing with each other. It wasn't easy. We'd proceed along nicely, and then some little nothing, some perceived slight, would set us back again for weeks or even months. There'd be silence, strained conversations, little eye contact, knots in our stomach. And then we'd try again. Slowly, bit by bit, we became tenuous friends. Still, when it became apparent that Carol and David were going to add to their family by adopting a child, my first line of thinking was that, selfishly, my kids were going to get pushed to the side and how I might be affected financially. I watched Carol and David go through the emotional roller coaster of trying to adopt through one agency and have their hopes dashed. The second time around, we were all more used to the idea. When a young couple picked them out, our daughters were ecstatic, and I was surprised to find I was truly excited too. Now the waiting game began. The birth mother still had 2 months to go until she delivered. Would she change her mind during her 3-day decision period? Finally, a baby boy was born. His name would be Jacob. David and Carol spent most of the weekend at the hospital, wanting to see him as much as possible, even though this would make it all the more heartbreaking if the adoption did not go through. I was asked to bring the girls there so they could meet him, only hours after Jacob's birth. There, I met the mother, a young, sweet sparrow of a woman, and the baby's tall, quiet father. A bittersweet sadness tinged the bright euphoria in the air. It was disorienting in the crowded room. I felt like a clumsy, obtrusive invader. Surely I was imposing. And yet, when I mumbled something about leaving, I was warmly urged to stay. Carol asked me to sit in the rocking chair and handed me the baby to hold. He was so tiny and light, all bundled in blankets. As I took him from her, I looked into her eyes in humbled awe. Fighting hard to blink back the tears. I will never forget the generosity of that one simple gesture. We got the news later by phone that all the papers had been signed. Jacob went home on his second day in this world to live with his new family. I was so genuinely happy for Carol and David, for my ex and his new wife. But I still wasn't sure where I fit into this picture. And honestly, now that Carol and I had connected so strongly in a way that even I didn't understand, I was hesitant to step on her toes in the slightest. So I hung back and let her take the lead. As Carol explained to me later, when she started thinking of the baby as not just hers, but as Maddie's and Sophie's too, then her feelings about sharing him with me began to soften, to change. It became easier and easier for her to invite me into a larger sense of family as we shared stories of sleepless nights, the art of deciphering different baby cries, the irresistible cuteness of chubby baby butts. I began to love this spunky, outgoing little boy. I began to feel connected to him, to look forward to seeing him. I even began to miss him. He would squeal with delight when he saw me, and it would totally make my day. Looking back, I can see now that widening the net of our extended family, wanting to build a bigger nest, was initially for the girls, but now it was for Jacob too. We had 3 very good reasons to try so hard. And so when I was asked to babysit the first boy in the family, I jumped at the chance. I took directions about what to do, just like a regular babysitter, knowing I needed to follow their preferences instead of mine. With Jacob tucked in my lap, growing drowsy from sleep, I rang with mixed emotions. Sadness at the permanent duality of our families, delight at the deliciousness of holding a snuggly infant again, gratitude for the powers that be for helping us all get to this point in what is typically such a fragile and acrimonious dance. Jacob is 6 now and has us all wrapped around his fingers. Little did I know years ago how much this tiny person would come to mean to me, or how powerfully he would pull us all so close together.